Okay, for our next recipe, we're using what looks like a bit of a mezza plate.
Like a mangy mezza plate.
Yeah, so Christmas Day, you know, you put out a great big spread.
Okay.
But do we throw this out, or what can we do with it?
I think we've learned by now that nothing should be thrown out, that we can do something with anything. And I guess another general rule, aside from everything tastes better in pastry, is everything tastes better in egg. Okay. So if pastry is not going to work, egg is your best friend. So everything tastes better with egg on it. Okay. So it's a good policy to take. Now we've got some leftover egg wash from those puffs. So we're just going to add a few more eggs and use our leftovers, love our leftovers, break these eggs. What you'll notice about them is they actually, free-range organic eggs actually crack with a lot more difficulty than cage eggs. And that's because the shell has actually had a lot more nourishment and a lot more nutrients, and the calcium in it is strong enough that you actually have to put effort in to crack it. So you can imagine if the shell has that much nutritional value, how much better the eggs are for you as well. So try and buy free-range organic where you can. Better still, if you've got someone local who's got chickens, that's it's a pretty handy one too. You'll notice that I'm not throwing the shells out because they make fantastic compost. So in terms of how many eggs I'd put into a frittata, which is what we're making, worst case scenario, if it doesn't frittata, we can also just make scrambled eggs with stuff in it, or an omelette. Basically, anything that is bound together with egg is bound to be delicious. Like, seriously. And the best part about it as well is that vegetarians can enjoy this, and they've got the protein benefits of the eggs. And if you want to, you can obviously make this more of a meat eater's dish by adding some leftover Christmas ham, or any sort of salami leftover on your mezza plate, any chorizo sausage in the fridge, anything basically from a meat variety. Everything can go into a frittata. You can even make a sweet frittata if you want to. I haven't. Not quite sure how it would work, but hey, if you do try it, please let me know how you go. Cool. So I'm going to pop 5 eggs in here, and we've already got half an egg there too. So about between 5 to 8 eggs, depending on how many people you have. And the reason why you want quite a few eggs in there is because that's actually going to fluff up, almost like a souffle. So we're going to hit it with some heat from the top, the stove top, and then we're going to hit it with some heat from the oven as well. So
you could pretty much use any leftovers in this, is that right? Anything
leftovers, definitely. I would be, you know, I think I'm going to experiment with some sweet flavors through this. I feel like it could work. Because eggs are such fantastic flavor carriers, because they're just so neutral, and they're just so good for you as well. So let's pop that away. There we go. Now, in terms of storage, some people say store your eggs in the fridge, some people say store it in the pantry. What are you
I'm always confused, because when you buy them, they're not in the fridge, so why do we need to refrigerate them?
Well, what tends to happen is that eggs that aren't refrigerated are the ones that are coming from a farm or coming from your local producer. And if you don't refrigerate them from the start, you don't need to refrigerate them. But if you bought them from the supermarket and they've been refrigerated, you need to keep them within that. And usually it's a little bit of an indicator as well of freshness. Now, how do you tell if your egg is a bit wonky? Well, sometimes if you're not quite sure, I would suggest you actually crack the eggs separately and pop them together. But often if you drop the egg into some water, an egg that's off is going to float. Which is...
it's these sorts of tips, something that your mum would have passed down to you, but you just sort of forget. So I think this is really good to sort of reconnect with those tips and what mum used to say.
Exactly. And I guess the reason why our mums had those sorts of tips is because they didn't have so much abundance of produce. And I think that's probably why we've forgotten a little bit, because our first instinct is to chuck, whereas her first instinct would be to save. So let's go back to that.
Okay.
Let's get back to this. So we've got the mezza ingredients there. If you're working with ingredients from scratch, you will need to sort of roast these off, give them a little bit of caramelization.
We cheated a bit, didn't we?
We cheated.
It's mezza plate.
We've mezza plated this, and now all we have to do is chop it up a little bit, sort of kind of finely, so into bite-sized pieces again. You don't have to go, you know, you don't have to go into a fine chiffonade. It's nice and mushy, so you can just kind of chop it. Watch those fingers. Oily. There we go. You just want it. You want it to be kind of chunky, and you also want see all the flavour in that olive oil? I can kind of smell the garlic and the chilli. We don't have to add those in. They're already in there, which is awesome.
Bonus.
Now these green martini olives are going to go in there as well. If the olive has a pit, don't leave it in there. Chop it off. It's a good tip.
So how do you get the frittata so light and fluffy?
Well, you'll notice I was whisking it.
Yeah.
That's a good place to start.
Okay.
Because that's actually aerating it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you probably wouldn't want to aerate a mixture that you want to be nice and dense, but anything that you want to be light and fluffy, aerate it for sure.
Good whisk.
A good whisk is a good place to start. And a lot of people think that it needs to be fancy, expensive whisk. You don't have to go fancy or expensive. The more of these sort of fine fronds, I guess, of the whisk that you have, the more air you're going to whisk into it. So this is perfect, and this is a pretty standard El Stando whisk. Now, so I'll get you to clean those olives off for me while I talk through the rest of this meze plate. So what we've got, so did you want to de-pip?
Okay.
Here you go.
Sorry.
That's cool. So did you see what I was doing there? I was just kind of working around the pip. Pretty stock standard stuff, and then you get like these chunky pieces like that. So now what we're going to do is crumble up this cheese. Now this is a goat's feta, which would be just fabulous on a meze plate, and incidentally fabulous on the top of a frittata. I wouldn't recommend that you put too much of this through the frittata. It's actually going to go on top. So it's going to be the feature of this. Add a bit more protein to the dish as well. Creaminess. Om nom nom.
So what I'm getting about these leftover dishes is they're pretty easy in terms of we could whip this up for breakfast.
Yes.
Got a crowd of people and they're going to be super impressed, I think.
I believe so. Yes. So last olive, and then what we're going to do is rather than using butter or olive oil, we've got some of this leftover residue oil from the meze, like sun-dried tomatoes and the roasted veggies. So we're going to use that to create the non-stickiness of the pan instead of butter or olive oil. So that's leftover management.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, let's do that. I'm going to turn this on. So a lot of people kind of go a little bit nutso with how much oil they put in here. I would say just coat the bottom. That's really all you need. You don't want to go overboard with it. Oh, I see. Nifty. So kind of a medium heat. The rocket. Save the rocket. All right. Fabulous. So that is also all about the flavour, because that oil has absorbed all the flavour of the sun-dried tomatoes, the roasted veggies, the garlic, the chilli, and you've got that in your pan. How good's that going to taste?
And I guess if you just wanted to keep the remainder of these vegetables fresh, you could keep adding olive oil to this.
Totally, definitely. You can keep adding olive oil, and you've also got a flavoured olive oil that's fantastic on bruschetta. It's something that you can sort of dip chips into.
Bread,
You could totally do that, dip bread of any kind. Now, so that's happening. I'm just going to season this up a little bit with some salt and some pepper. And that's going to form our frittata mix. But let's pop the veggies in there first. So, and then we'll pop the egg mix on top. Now the oven's on. Fabulous. And you want this on high heat. You just want to hit it with hot air as soon as it gets into the oven. So about 220 for this one. I'm excited about this because it's a vegetarian dish. I actually tend to make most of my dishes vegetarian plus optional meat. I myself am a meat eater, but I've got plenty of friends that don't eat meat or fish, so I'll give them the option of something delicious. I think a lot of people have this preconceived notion of vegetarian food being bland or a bit sort of naff, but vegetables are delicious.
Yeah.
And they keep better too, so you'll get a lot more life out of them. Nice. So let's get that in there.
So while Alice is whipping up our frittata, I wanted to talk to you about Meat-Free Mondays. It's an initiative of Do Something and the Fries Family Foundation. It's quite simple. Every Monday, you take the day off meat. For more tips and recipes, you can log on to meatfreemondays.com.au.
Well, we've had a lot of fun in the kitchen today, and you've challenged me. You gave me...
I gave you applesauce.
and I made apple puffs.
Leftover turkey.
Turkey salad.
And then there was those roasted vegetables.
Roasted vegetable frittata. For all of these recipes and tips on how to use your leftovers, Do Something have a great website, foodwise.com.au. Get it done.